Okay, so hello. This is the first recording in the series that we're calling Let's Talk Disability. I'm Jackie Carter. I'm the EDI Disability Academic Lead at the University of Manchester, and I have invisible disabilities myself, so I live with disability. And I took on this role of EDI Disability Lead in 2023. And one of the aspects of the role that I want to do is to raise the voice of disabled staff and students at the University of Manchester. And I've decided to do that by bringing together in these short conversation pieces two people to focus on talking about disability. And each episode will have a senior member of the University of Manchester and a disabled staff or PGR student who will be talking about their lived experience of having a disability at the University of Manchester. So I'm going to hand over first and foremost to today's guests. So PJ, if I can ask you please to introduce yourself, say who you are, anything about yourself that you want to share with the listeners.
So, hi, I'm PJ Hemmaway. I'm the university's Chief Information Officer. I've been with the university for about 18 months now. And EDI is very close to my heart for various different reasons. And over the last 18 months that I've been here, I've really tried to be engaged with our community, our students, our staff, and our wider audience out there. So what does this mean? What does engagement mean for me? It means sort of getting out there, being visible and being approachable, and being able to facilitate conversations and try to come up with solutions in terms of looking for the path of least resistance. IT will look after about 80,000 people, which is a crazy number. And you know, those and what that means is sometimes people's voices can disappear. So I'm really just happy to be here to help and to listen and to look for ways forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I love those words, visible and approachable. Thank you, PJ. Julia, over to you.
Well, hello. I'm Julia. I'm originally from Poland, hence the fancy pronunciation of my name. So I've been at the university for a very long time. I came here in 2018 to do my bachelor's degree. Then I progressed straight on to master's, and this year I've landed myself a nice job as a graduate intern in the medical school. I also managed to be selected to become a secretary for the EDI committee in the medical school, a role which I very much enjoy for many reasons, also the personal ones, because I also live with a hidden disability. I'm autistic and I have ADHD, so obviously that comes with certain barriers, but there are also certain strengths, as you've nicely brought it up earlier. There's kind of two sides to everything, right? So I'm very happy to be here and talk about disability and engagement and what that means in the context of being a staff member at the university.
Thank you both very much indeed. So this is a conversation. I want us all to enjoy this, and I hope the people listening to it will enjoy what we have to say as well. So as you've both noticed, there's two sides to every story, and we're all in this together. And what we want to do is create a disability inclusive culture at the University of Manchester. So we're interested in finding out what is that like on the ground. So, Julia, back to you, please. If you can tell us a little bit about maybe the challenges, the barriers you face, but also some of the strengths that you bring to the university.
That's a very good question, actually. I think the main barrier, I feel it doesn't necessarily stem from the university as an institution, because from what I've experienced over the last couple of years of being in Manchester and at the university, it's a very nice and inclusive environment, and because Manchester is such an international city, and that also means that the university is very international. I feel like as an institution, it tries to cater to everybody within possible capacity. The issues I've had, I think, oftentimes they stem from the fact that you probably are familiar with the term masking. In the context of autism or ADHD, it means that you kind of try very hard to appear neurotypical and just like quote unquote normal. Obviously normal is arbitrary, but you know what I mean. So obviously just kind of communication at first sort of managing what I perceive to be the expectations communication-wise in the work environment, especially when I started. Obviously, that's always very daunting. That was a bit stressful, and it took me a while to sort of settle in the new environment. And my coworkers were lovely and super supportive to make sure that I kind of, settle in quickly, which as it turns out I did. But obviously it sort of didn't look like it for me at the beginning because I was super stressed and I was trying my best to kind of, act quote unquote normal. So it's small things sometimes that I feel like they might appear, easy to a neurotypical person. For example, eye contact is a massive struggle for me. I kind of have a bit of an issue with pacing my speech sometimes. I tend to speak very fast. So obviously those are like those minor things that can get in the way. But yeah, I feel like for most parts it's been a lovely experience in terms of settling in, and those barriers. It's more so to do, I guess, with the disability itself, not necessarily with how the university responds to having an employee with a disability present in the work environment.
I think speaking fast, you're definitely in the right place, Manchester. I'm from here, so I also find myself slowing down. I think it's really interesting when people talk about being normal. Nobody's normal, seriously. I have dysgraphia. I'm very proud to be a little bit different. So I bring that into my day's work in terms of being very self-aware. In terms of your experiences being a staff member, how's your interaction gone being a member of PS and any support that you've needed? Because from a masking perspective, I understand that in terms of it can create anxiety. Everybody on the outside, it feels a little bit different. But how did you cope with that?
I sort of first and foremost, and I think that's usually the best course of action. I usually, when meeting a new staff member, or at least new to me, because obviously they've all been there for years and I was the newbie, I still am really. I sometimes, if I felt like the situation requires it, I would disclose with them like, hey, I sort of struggle with eye contact. I apologize for that in advance. It's not that I'm not listening to you. It's just that I'm really, really bad with it, etc. What I also usually do, which obviously I think depends on personal preferences, I usually disclose quite early on that, what my disabilities are and sort of how that might impact, the communication style I prefer. I've disclosed that to my boss. I think the first week I've started, I told her, when we were sitting down and kind of talking through what my responsibilities and tasks will normally be during a work week, I told her, hey, I am autistic. I will need like a lot of clarity in terms of what the expectations are when I'm assigned a task. I would like to know exactly what I'm doing. And also, so that's what I've done. And it actually turned out to be, she turned out to be super open and supportive. She was very well aware of how those things work. So that was really helpful, and that kind of helped curb my anxiety as well, because everyone's been super open and understanding, and even if they don't understand something, they've just asked questions in a very polite manner, and I was more than happy to explain in full detail. So yeah, I feel like just being open and honest about kind of what your expectations are communication wise, they kind of always help in terms of managing the anxiety of, being new to the workplace and also being neurodivergent and new to the workplace. It's a lot to deal with at the beginning. So yeah, just being open. You don't necessarily have to disclose a disability if you don't feel comfortable with that. It's like everyone's preference, as I say, but just being straightforward about your kind of like your communication style, for example. I think that's important.
I think from a PS perspective, professional services, that is, I do like to spend time with my leaders and my managers and trying to provide coaching and supporting. And one thing that I've noticed is sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. But being really open and honest, if we've got new managers, just in terms of how to have those conversations. I think what you were just referring to in terms of for managers to be very clear in terms of expectations and role requirements. I actually find that very, very, very helpful myself when I'm with our registrar, secretary and chief operating officer. The clearer the direction that I get, it really just sort of helped me. What type of guidance would you give a manager to support others around you into supporting you? So not necessarily those with a disability, but those to actually support you in the office environment.
I would say, just kind of explain things in detail and sort of just make sure that and double check with me that I know what I'm doing, and maybe just kind of check in every so often to see how I'm getting along with the task, if I need any extra support, etc. I think that's important. Obviously, give me that high degree of independence that is, I guess, expected of me as a staff member, but also make sure that I kind of feel like there's someone out there more senior to me and more aware of how things work, supporting me, because that's always very reassuring, as I said, especially when someone's very new. So yeah, that support and that clear communication, I think those are very important.
I'm very proud to be at Manchester University. It's my hometown. I came back a couple of years ago, seriously, and it's just a pleasure to be here. One of the things that really attracted me to coming back to Manchester, to Manchester University, was its stance on EDI. How valuable do you think that is as a staff member, and did that attract you to actually apply the role that you're in? For me, it's good to understand in terms of what our value proposition is and making sure that we reinforce the positive. As I said, we're a big organisation. Sometimes we get it wrong. Hopefully, most of the time we get it right. So knowing that if we're getting our stance and our approach with EDI, that's really valuable to hear. A lot of time people focus on the negative sometimes. It would be great to hear what's working from a university and an EDI perspective.
So when I was applying for the role, it did say in bold letters on the application page that the applications from all sorts of people of all sorts of backgrounds are welcome, including ethnic minorities, but also including people with disabilities like myself. And I must say that felt very reassuring when I was looking for a job after I finished my master's, because it just felt like, it's not an obstacle in me getting a job. And even though in some ways I might not be perceived as quote unquote normal in the way I function in society, like it doesn't mean I cannot have like a nice quote unquote normal life and a nice job that I'll feel fulfilled by. So that definitely attracted me. The fact that it was very clearly stated that like anyone is welcome to apply, and the floor is open to everyone. In terms of EDI, I can speak from experience because, as stated at the very beginning, I am the EDI secretary for the committee in the School of Medical Sciences, and it just feels very rewarding to be at a meeting, like minuting it and listening to what the leads from all those different divisions in the school have to say in terms of the updates, in terms of the events that, they're putting on, and sort of what the progression is with certain, initiatives to make the school more of an inclusive place. It just feels very heartwarming, because sometimes I guess when you're looking at, the actions that a big institution like the university takes, from a layman's perspective, it might be like, oh, why is it taking so long, etc. But from an insider's perspective, it's just like things, are in the work, like things are happening, and there's a real change happening. Sometimes it might take a while, but there is a real change going on, and it's just nice to see, isn't it?
Oh, I think from a change perspective. So as I mentioned before, I've been here just about 18 months. I met an amazing colleague within my directorate who approached me in terms of digital accessibility. And to your point, in terms of things can take a while, a year and a half. Today, we've made progress on something. So I've just emailed him. He's really quite happy. So hopefully we're hearing more about digital accessibility coming soon. But the point is, it's taken a year and a half to slowly move the oil tanker a little bit. But I can see that we're heading in the right direction with many different areas. So as I reflect on just 18 months to sort of move the dial a little bit, it's a long time, but also it's gone very, very quickly. The colleague that I was been working with is really, really happy. We're looking at digital accessibility. We're looking about what tools that we need to make online to make our sites a lot more EDI friendly. We've got so much work to do. But to your point in terms of, we're heading in the right direction, change is there. It's for me, again, I'm really proud to be part of the community because I see academic leadership, I see research, I see student union, I see professional service specifically within Patrick's area. The remit that he's provided in terms of this is important to PS, it's second to none. So, sort of pulling that back in terms of why I'm here, absolutely really, really happy. And then as I sort of reflect on this in terms of, I need to get a little bit selfish now because obviously being Chief Information Officer, I've always got questions about IT. So from an IT perspective, what do you think we could be doing differently or better to support EDI?
I think one issue that I've experienced with the IT, which obviously is a bit of a struggle. And this is not like an attack on you, just to be clear.
Oh, no, I can be clear. It's not my fault, my problem. So that nice. No, seriously, we've got so much to do, and this is why I'm here to help fix things. So give it to me.
Okay, so I did notice whenever there is an IT issue with my Manchester, with Outlook, with whichever really, I feel like the kind of getting in touch with the IT services could be a bit easier to do because usually the phone line's super busy and it takes ages to connect to everybody. So I guess, and especially if someone needs urgent support with something technical or like IT related, I feel like that could be done a bit different. Because obviously from my perspective, for example, if there is an issue as I'm working as a PS member, and obviously I'm very anxious, and it's just kind of, and I'm not sure who to reach to, and I try to ring the IT phone line and no one's picking up. Like that obviously kind of exacerbates the anxiety as well. So I think that could be done a bit different. And also the other thing I was thinking, the StaffNet page we've got, obviously there's tons of information on it, but sometimes accessing the basics of the basics, like the really important links. So often I found myself having to ask my colleagues to send a link to me via Outlook just because I just couldn't find it on the website. It's a massive website, and granted, there's lots of information on there, and all of it is important, obviously. We're just kind of having it more sort of visually easy to, I guess, see where's what, the most important links, just so I don't panic when I have to do a task and I just cannot find the link anywhere, type of thing.
I think the first point in terms of the interaction with IT when things are happening, absolutely. Just sort of sat here now, you've given me so much food for thought in terms of I've always got plans and ideas and strategies, but I'll put my hand on my heart and say that's not something that I thought of. So you've given me a task now to go back to my colleagues and say, as we're reinventing our IT service desk and our technology bars of tomorrow, which is really coming next year, how do we do that? So again, food for thought just in terms of excitement for me, because I love hearing from staff and students, but co-creating services is so important. And I think the partnership that IT has with EDI partners, people like yourselves, is absolutely key, because as we're designing new services, things can happen in a vacuum. Everybody's really busy, but one of the things that we've been trying to do is touch base with our partners to say, how does this come across? How does this feel? What does this look like to you? And being our critical friend. So the action that I've got there is to go back and think about how we can improve that, and that's definitely on board. I'm happy with that. And then again in StaffNet, you're absolutely right. The experience needs to be improved. Improving the technology is on the plan. When we're going to get around to it, not too sure yet, because we had that little thing called cyber, which is a bit of a curveball to me over the summer. A
tiny thing.
That's great. Can I chip in? So it's been really interesting listening to the two of you backwards and forwards, exchanging ideas and thoughts and experiences. So one of the things I said I wanted to do with this series is to also get to the heart of the strengths. We've talked a lot about the barriers and what needs improving, but also to get to the heart of the strengths of having a diverse workforce. So is there anything you'd want to share with us, Julia, in terms of, yourself, as you've described yourself, the strengths that you bring to your particular role, over and above perhaps the motivation that you've got to get involved with EDI activity? What do you bring that you'd want people to know about?
I think, obviously, coming from a different than English background, in an office that is usually, the staff is usually English, I feel like I sort of bring maybe a different perspective on how things are done, because obviously I'm an outsider to this country. I've been here for a while, but obviously I'm still an outsider technically. So that's one thing. In terms of disability, I think in the office and in the context of administrative work, my, let's say, combination of neurodivergencies is actually quite a big strength because, well, how to put it? I am I'm very to the point when I'm discussing things or when I'm emailing someone or chasing someone up. Like obviously I try to be super polite, etc. But like if I'm onto something and I want to have something done, I will do it just because when the ADHD hyperfocus kicks in as well, I'm just like super focused on it until it's done. And when I'm super focused on something, like I also make sure that it's done perfectly because I'm a massive perfectionist, which I guess comes with the package, I suppose. So yeah, in that context, I feel just like being able to get something done, get it done really well, and just being very analytical about an administrative procedure, being sort of very very analytical, just because it's something you're like so interested in and borderline obsessed with. Like I guess that is a big strength, and that's something worthwhile that I bring to the table as an employee in this context.
If I can just, sorry, I really just want to come in on that.
Please
because
do.
In my previous life, I had two colleagues with ADHD. One was a project manager and one was a business analyst. And their quality of work in terms of attention to detail was second to none again. The project manager was assertive yet respectful in terms of getting projects delivered. The business analyst had an eye for detail that you just couldn't, it was just amazing. And you talk to those secret strengths, absolutely. And I think as I look at your career ahead of you, really drawing on those secret strengths is so important. And I'm just sort of reflecting now on my last couple of years, and again, just working with people with ADHD, fantastic. And yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because you said it as if everybody understood, and of course not everybody does understand that one of the strengths of being neurodivergent is having that attention to detail and that ability to hyperfocus, I think was the word you used.
Yes.
So what would you say to people, again, this is one for you, Julia, what would you say to people who maybe don't know about that? What would you want them to know? There may be somebody in their team who hasn't shared, I prefer the word shared to disclose, but hasn't shared that they are neurodivergent. What would you want a good team, a well-functioning team, to know about the differences that people have and how that can be the strength?
So in terms of differences, I think it's worth knowing, coming from a neurodivergent staff member, it is very much a strength because if I'm into something and I very much like my job, I will go above and beyond to have it done properly and have it done perfectly if possible. And let me think. And just the fact that I might be struggling with sort of like the interaction in terms of kind of, those minor things as eye contact, it doesn't kind of mean that I'm not a good employee, obviously, or that I'm being rude. I feel like that's quite a common misconception in terms of interacting with autistic people, that they're being rude just because they're, like very direct and they might just, not look you in the eye when they're talking to you. But it doesn't actually, but that should not kind of divert your attention from the fact that a neurodivergent employee will also be able to be a very solid, very consistent employee. We thrive on a routine, we thrive on a tight schedule, and we just thrive on kind of doing the job we like or love. And if we do, we'll just be excellent employees and will help run the institution and deal with the academic and administrative procedures very smoothly. So it's a great benefit to have a neurodivergence employee, I think.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything, PJ? Because I'm going to round up in a few minutes.
I just a question in terms of how you look after your own well-being. When you're hyper-focused on delivery and all of those things, looking after your own self, how do you do that?
That is very hard sometimes, especially during busier periods like at the moment. I guess just trying to take a break, whether it's just going around the building, maybe stretching out a bit, having a sip of water. I'm trying to stay hydrated so hard. But I tend to, see, the thing is, when I get super into something, I just kind of forget about everything else, which includes drinking water or eating. So kind of making sure to space the work, to kind of include breaks as well, even if shorter breaks. I think that's super important, because oftentimes what I've noticed as well, if I'm thinking about how to do something, how to go about something, if I'm like really stuck and I just, get up and take a walk, whether it's just outside to the bathroom or to the kitchen to make myself a cup of tea or something, sometimes as I'm doing that and obviously my thoughts are not on work, it just kind of clicks in my head and I'm like, oh, actually, this is how this could be done. And it just kind of helps mental health wise to just kind of get out of one space for a while, just kind of, look at something from a distance. I think that's super duper important, especially for a neurodivergent staff member like myself, just because like it's really easy when you hyperfocus. The downside of it is that you just kind of, that's the only thing you're doing. You forget to sleep, you forget to drink, you forget to eat, you forget to breathe. Like it's really important to, to be able to kind of take a break.
And I can just add to that in terms of it's also really important that managers, we look after our staff to make sure that they take breaks, and we're very aware and very inclusive in terms of get out of the office, go and get a coffee, go for a walk. So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, and this has been a wonderful conversation to listen to. I've learned so much. Thank you very much. But in each of these conversations, as I've forewarned you, I've got 2 questions that I want to wrap up with. And each of you get to ask the other one of the questions. So, Julia, starting with you.
So, PJ, one thing that you will commit to do as a result of this conversation, what would it be?
You've made that easy for me because we're having such a great conversation. I'm going to go and work with our colleagues in the IT service desk on looking for ways to provide a more inclusive service during incidents or just in general in terms of contact ways into IT when things are going wrong. So seriously, that's just so natural for us now.
That's fantastic. And just to say that you have already been paying attention to this. So during, recent events at the university, I know you were very responsive to thinking about being inclusive in terms of communication. So thank you. And now you get to ask Julia a question, PJ.
Brilliant. So what one thing would make a difference to your lived experience as a University of Manchester employee?
Yeah, so I thought quite a lot about that question. I think whilst, let's say myself, I as an employee, I'm doing well at the moment in my work environment. Obviously, I'm aware that, kind of people might have varied experience depending what's sort of work environment they're in within the university. So I think moving forward, in order to make a difference to my lived experience as an employee, but also everyone else's, it would be important to just sort of continue kind of emphasizing the importance of, EDI and importance of kind of just being inclusive and open and making sure to, engage and make those improvements in order to sort of make the kind of lived experience of the staff, PGR and students as comfortable and inclusive as possible.
Brilliant. We're all in this together.
That's great. Thank you very much, both of you. This has been absolutely wonderful listening to you both today. Thank you for being so open and honest and forthright, actually, with your expressions of both the lived experience, but also what we can do, particularly people in positions like yourself, PJ, in terms of having influence and power and seniority to be able to make the change that we have been talking about. So thank you very much.